I am Sarah. I read as Sora the Intuitive for Sky Messages by Sora. I am a tarot reader who specializes in past life readings. I also teach and mentor the tarot. I have two journals, one for learning the tarot and one for more learning yourself and deepening the connection with your deck. That one's a collaboration with Killer Pancake, who makes a couple of the decks I'll be reviewing. The reason I started this channel, and specifically this series, the tarot review series, is that I really want people to be able to have a connection. I want anyone who wants to do the tarot to be able to learn it. And a lot of times people get really frustrated because the first deck that they start using, they don't really connect with. And so I'm hoping that instead of getting frustrated or spending a lot of money on decks that they then realize they don't want, people can sort of start to learn what their style is, what theme they're looking for, what kind of imagery works for them, and help people find the right decks for them. I do believe that if there is a tarot deck out there, there is an audience for it. And if there is somebody who wants to learn, then there's definitely a deck for them. So this won't have star ratings. This won't be about what's good and bad. It'll be about the details, such as the guidebook, a level that it's good for, like basic to advanced. It will be, how close it is to the Rider-Waite or the Tarot de Marseille, or the Thoth for those who prefer that. And it will just give people a look and hopefully help them start to begin their journey. Or for those of us who have been on their journey for a while but are thinking about new decks and testing out different things, give them a preview. So there are some of the decks behind me, but if there are any you're interested in, let me know. And let's get started. So today we're going to look at the Nicoletta Ceccoli Tarot. That's this one. The box is not here because it is so well loved that I have kind of run it into the ground. It's kind of the standard box that you see with most of the Lo Scarabo decks. Really most publishers, just the kind of standard card box. This is the guidebook. You can see it was in that box and got a little bit beat up. In terms of the guide, one thing I really love is they make sure to explain the symbols, because if you are in the middle of a reading and you're not sure, you don't have to work too hard to remember which one's queen and which one's king. The books has little tiny phrases and key concepts for each card, which is very nice, and it's in 2 languages. I believe the other one is Italian. So it's a good guidebook if you are already a reader. It would probably be a little bit frustrating for beginners. So the reason I wanted to start with this deck is this is the one I use the most often professionally, and it is the one I do all of my past life readings with. I do a reading where it's a tarot spread, and we look at which past life is influencing you the most, and this is the deck I always use. So I'm going to give you an idea of what all the cards look like, and then tell you kind of my favorite things about the deck, what I would prefer to see, and who it's best for, and then we'll do a quick reading to kind of get a feel for how it reads. This deck is much closer to the Thoth in terms of meanings and readings. They're really beautiful illustrations, very fairy tale oriented. And one thing I love about that is the more you recognize which card is which fairy tale, the more you can use that to tell the story in the deck. lot of little details, a lot of sentient desserts. Not a lot of men. Only the Emperor, I believe, is male, other than, I don't know, maybe some of the bugs. We got Alice here, the caterpillar. And I just love, she's got the backgrounds. One of the things, I'll give a further explanation at the end, but one of the groups of people I think would really love this deck is someone who really appreciates good painting. So this is, I mentioned before, he is the only male that you see in the deck. The Emperor is the divine masculine, and she has made him a little boy, the Napoleon complex. So that card has so much more nuance than a lot of decks, because you can really, really read into that whole little boy in the nursery as part of something like the divine masculine. So it's really wonderful to play with. This is the Magician. What I love with her, another thing that I spend a lot of time with this deck is looking at whether things are headbands or, in this case, their ears. This is the Magician, a card of manifestation. She decided she wanted to be a leopard, put on her little leopard dress and her mask, and has already started to create the life that she wants. I love this Lovers card because a lot of the times you see it as Adam and Eve. And here you've got the snake and the apple. And I just love that. Because again, it adds so much nuance. Like knowing what you will usually see on a card versus what you are seeing, and those differences can really give you a lot of meaning in a deck. It's one of my favorite Ten of Swords because it's a card of loss, but really it's a card of walking away from something that you shouldn't be, and she's done. The Ten of Swords, you usually see someone with 10 swords in them, and it's like, okay, no more swords. And she's just like, you know what? I'm going to do something else. I'm tired of these people in this situation. And so it conveys the meaning while still being this gorgeous piece of art. We have the Moon, Empress. I love this Nine of Swords because the Nine of Swords is about anxiety and kind of how we make small things into big things, and they are terrified of this little bunny who is also terrified of them. A lot of intricate details like headwear. This is the Three of Swords, the card of heartbreak and disappointment, and you can see she's been collected. You can also see that she's crying. And it sounds awful, but I like to see that because it's that reminder that she's not dead. Because when you collect a butterfly, they are. So that reminder is that she just needs to process these feelings and move on. It's a really nice piece. See a lot of nursery, a lot of Alice. I love how she's just chilling. Miss Muffet. I love this sun because it's the only sun card I see where the background is dark. The sun is all about blessings, and to have that dark background behind the sun kind of, to me, points out that oftentimes we have the power to create our own blessings. The Hanged Man, a card of different perspectives. I love it because instead of having them upside down, they just have slightly different views. This is one of my favorites because it's so different from the rest of the cards, even though it fits so well. These flowers are more realistic. But also, this is the Page of Wands, and I always see that as the ever-moving artist. And I just love, she has that whole vibe for me. This is the Strength card. One thing you'll notice with Rider-Waite versus a lot of other decks is that the Strength and Justice are reversed. So the Strength card is usually 8, but this is the Strength card. And I love it because the Strength card isn't about physical strength, it's about strength of character. And she's just going over all that. She's not dealing with the gossip. It looks like he's impaled, but if you get close, you realize it's behind. Just jumping over that. This is my absolute favorite death card. This is Snow White. And when Snow White bit the poison apple, she didn't die. She went on to a better life. Death is about transformation, not death. There she is again. As we look at the Six of Swords, a card of moving forward. This is my favorite Devil card. I'm just going to switch it because I like these three cards together. The Devil, to me, is all about the devils we make for ourselves. And so to have him be a giant carrot with horns is just perfect. But what I love about it is the Seven of Wands in this deck is supposed to be about atonement. And I have never, ever, ever read it, I don't think, as anything other than it's time to stop atoning. So where he's the devil, this is the guy in a devil suit. Back to looking at hairlines versus costumes. And it's like that card of constantly torturing yourself. The Five of Swords in this deck, we get rid of limiting beliefs, limiting thoughts about ourselves. I say in this deck, but really it's in this deck and to me. But I love it because we have another root vegetable. And she's like, no, I'm done. I'm done treating myself that way. And then we have the Tower. This is actually not my favorite Tower. It's a beautiful card, but it looks like the Tower is going to fall down because it wasn't well put together. The thing about the Tower is that it was put together just fine, except maybe you missed a spot. The foundation wasn't as strong as you thought it was. It wasn't put together in a rough way. It was put together in a way that just wasn't going to stand the test of time. In the short term, the Tower is a card of disappointment. But in the long term, it's a good thing. So we're just clearing away the breakages. So it's not my favorite card. It's not a bad card. A bad version. It's just not my favorite version of that. I like the lightning. I like the crack. So I wanted to make sure you saw all the cards. But I only highlighted a few because I don't want this to be extremely long. I want you to be able to collect your information and make your decision. What I would say the audience that this deck is best for would be experienced readers, particularly those like me who have traditions that are slightly different from the Rider-Waite. If you are a Rider-Waite specific reader, like all of your decks are Rider-Waite, then it would be a good one to expand your practice with, your spiritual practice, but it's going to take some getting used to. It's great for intuitive readers. It's not going to be the best for beginners unless you are really connected to it, because it is going to throw you off a little bit when you start looking at meanings. But it's a really beautiful deck. I adore it. And with anything I say about who it's good for or not, take it with a grain of salt, because if you really adore it, then absolutely you're going to want to work with it. But it is a deck that can be frustrating for people who are really used to the Rider-Waite meanings and look and imagery, or or if you're new, because for the same reason, they don't have the same imagery you're used to, they don't have the same kind of symbolism to even try to work with. So it's not that it's a bad deck for you, it's just not the deck for you yet. But for people who love fairy tales, old stories, really detailed cards, illustrator decks, or people who are experienced and intuitive based readers, it's a really good one for that. So let's do a quick reading here. We'll do a quick, really, really quick getting to know the deck. We'll ask, what will this deck teach me? How should I use this deck? And what can we accomplish together? They're all basically the same question. Most of the interview ones go much, much deeper, but more want to give you a feel for how it reads. Okay, so what will this deck teach me? That's the Four of Swords. That is a card about rest and meditation. But one of the things I always look at is how instead of the swords, they've got the fish, and they're like sharing. The fish I always think of as like the Pisces with the intuition and the daydreaming. So I kind of love this as a what will it teach me, because to me it feels like it'll teach you to go further into yourself and make the deeper connections. It'll help you connect with your intuition, and I love that because it does that. But I also love it with the more traditional meaning of rest. I love that it'll teach you to take that time for yourself and work with it. What will we do together? More Pisces. So that is the Queen of Cups. The Queen and the Cups are both the water suit, the water element rather. And these are all about compassion and also intuition. Whenever you see the water, back to the fish, intuition. But I like them together because there's that idea of self-compassion, being easier on yourself, trusting your intuition, and I love that. So how will we use this deck? That's the Four of Wands. The wands are the fire element, and usually associated with a vision and passion, but the Four of Wands is usually about weddings and small ceremonies and small family gatherings and the personal accomplishments. But in this deck, and this is, again, why I say it's more about intuition and like getting to know your deck and over again. I see her running barefoot through the lollipop trees with her companion, and I always think of him as like the imaginary friend or a pet, and just this feels more like connecting to childhood, getting that back, getting that peace back and that freedom. So again, I love this deck, and I love these answers in looking into how you would work with this deck, in that it will help you spiritually, getting in tune with yourself. It's very soft, and I have found that the delivery of this deck, it's very straightforward. It tells you the truth, but it's not harsh at all. It doesn't candy coat, but it's honest and it's fair, and it wants to guide you through. It doesn't kind of come for you the way a lot of my cards do. It wants to help you and guide you to your best self. So as I mentioned, this is my first one of these, so I am still learning in terms of videos, and so I hope the ones to come are a little bit more dynamic and more fluid. I have a list of decks that I'm going to review because I have a lot myself and some that I'm borrowing, but I am so open to and looking forward to hearing what decks you would like to see, or any questions you have. Thank you, and have a great day.